I sit kind of up on a hill across the river, and I have a panoramic view now of this huge ash dump that's going to take years to clean up.
245 acres of farmland. Some of this spill touched part of my farmland, and some of the other farmland is flooded.
Two river valleys near the TVA's Kingston coal plant are now poisoned after a dam burst last month and unleashed a toxic stew of coal ash. 1 billion gallons, including arsenic, cadmium, lead, chromium, and mercury, known to cause birth defects and cancer. It's the largest industrial spill in American history, 100 times larger than the Exxon Valdez. Could this calamity have been avoided? Perhaps. That is, if there were federal laws to regulate coal ash. The problem is, there aren't. And the coal lobby wants to keep it that way. The closest the EPA ever got to regulating coal ash was in March of 2000, during the last days of the Clinton-Gore administration. Then headed by Carol Browner, the EPA generated a study that unequivocally stated this: coal ash is a hazardous waste and should be regulated by the federal government. EPA staffers prepared two documents then, one recommending federal regulation of coal ash, and one leaving it up to the states and private industry.
Okay, here we were in the spring of an election year, about to pass judgment on the regulation of one of the most important industries, measured any number of ways.
Andrew Whitner worked at the EPA in 2000 in the Office of Solid Waste Management. He co-authored the recommendation for the regulation of coal ash.
And with a very difficult judgment call, otherwise we would not have sent two possibilities up to Carol Browner's office. And I don't know who called whom or what emails might have been flying across Washington, but there is no question but that her office was under intensive pressure from the industry, from states, and from environmental interests. And her decision was certainly more favorable to industry. It was the best the industry could have hoped to get out of these two alternatives.
In 2008 alone, the coal industry shelled out more than $12 million to K Street lobbyists. Eric Schaefer, now head of the Environmental Integrity Project, spent 12 years at the EPA and has seen firsthand the tactics used by industry advocates.
How do they exert pressure on the EPA?
The industry has mountains of their own data. They have high-powered lawyers. They have their own scientists. And when you are trying to regulate an industry like coal, you're typically talking about 2 or 3 people at the Environmental Protection Agency that are carrying the load. On the other side of the table, you got hundreds of lawyers and lobbyists and scientists and corporate officials constantly hammering you to do nothing. I think that the decision's unfortunate. I'm guessing Carol Browner would take it back if she could.
Carol Browner is now back in government, this time as Barack Obama's top environmental advisor. The Kingston disasters put coal ash back on the map, and like in 2000, coal lobbyists are once again gearing up for a fight. Barbara Boxer is pushing to have coal ash regulated, and at a Senate hearing investigating the Kingston disaster, she summoned both sides to testify. Residents from Tennessee, whose land was covered in coal ash, were there, and so was TVA Chairman Tom Kilgore. And sitting next to Kilgore, lobbyist Jim Rower, head of USWAG, which stands for the Utility Solid Waste Activity Group, the lobbying group for coal ash issues. After the hearing, we approached Jim Rower for a statement. He agreed to sit down with us at a later date to explain the industry's case more fully, and then he didn't return our calls. The Harriman families, on the other hand, had no problem sharing their views.
The EPA doesn't consider fly ash a hazardous waste. Do you?
Yeah.
If it's not hazardous, why are they telling us don't walk in it and bring it back into your house? We're going to wash it off the tires of the trucks. Don't let your animals drink the water. If it's not hazardous, why are they telling us to be so careful?
If it's not hazardous, then why are we having to take all these precautions, number one? Number two, if it's not hazardous, why is TVA going to spend millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to clean it up?
So 9 years on and countless tons of toxins later, the TVA disaster is forcing Washington to face the question of coal ash. How Carol Browner and a new administration respond this time around will reveal much about whose voices will be heard in the years to come.
This is it. This is the perfect storm for the coal ash issue. And if we can't regulate this stuff now, it may be 10 or 20 years before we can come back to it.